Good afternoon and welcome to another Happy Hour with the Maestro. I'm Nick Palmer, music director and conductor of the North Charleston Pops Orchestra. We're thrilled to be here back at the Performing Arts Center, and I currently have a drink in our special Pops cup. You see now, you don't have to worry about it coming into view because we now are employing the green screen, which, you know, the weather people use. So it allows you to see our wonderful cup, our rainbow cup, which has our logo on it. And the beverage I'm enjoying today, very nice, is iced chai, one of my favorites. And we have a recipe on the screen here now, how to make this particular iced chai. And this is using a tea that you buy at Trader Joe's. And I usually sweeten it with a stevia product. This is a flavored stevia product, but you can use sugar and make it just like you would sweet tea or whatever way you want to do it with whatever sweetener you want. It's really great, and it's wonderful, especially on a warm afternoon like here in South Carolina. So let's begin by thanking some of our very, very valued sponsors. First of all, we have the Boeing Company and the associates of the Boeing Company who have been our season sponsor for several years now. We greatly appreciate Boeing and everything they do for us and for other arts organizations in the community. Then we have the Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly Foundation. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, the South Carolina Arts Commission. We also have our sponsor, Maestro Wines, and just very briefly, I want to tell you that as the founder of Maestro Wines, I am now a senior consultant for Scout and Cellar Wines. If you're interested in 100% clean crafted wines that are organic or biodynamic or both, have no sulfites, sugar, pesticides, anything like that, they're completely natural, they're really good. Send me an email, and I will be happy to send you a link as to how to get some of this wonderful wine. All right, now, without further ado, we have an absolutely fascinating guest today who's a wonderful musician and has so many different facets and aspects to her very, very exciting life. Please welcome to Happy Hour with the Maestro, Kathleen Wilson. Kathleen.
Hey, Nick.
How are you?
It's great to see you. I wish it was in person.
I know.
But we'll get back to that.
We will. And as you noticed, I had my beverage in my Pops cup, and I think you have a similar beverage. What is your beverage?
I do. I have in my cup, my Charleston Water System cup, green tea. I'm a big green tea drinker.
Well, it's really good for you, isn't it? I mean, green
is.
tea has lots of antioxidants, and it doesn't have as much caffeine as black tea. So lots of benefits.
That's right. And with the damage I do to muscle tissue, the more antioxidants, the better.
There you go. I understand that. So we're going to talk about all kinds of different things that you do. Right now, viewers will notice when you start talking that you actually have two harps in back of you. We'll talk a lot about your musical life and what you do with the harp. But let's start with a different aspect of your personality and life that maybe a lot of the people who know you as a harpist don't know about, and that's your life as an athlete. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I have been swimming since I was a little kid. As a matter of fact, I have to fess up. I failed beginner swimming.
Oh, no.
I did. And I went on to pass it and swam my whole life, and I've been addicted to the water since I can remember. And upon realizing that my strength was not in the pool, but out in the open ocean, I transferred over from conventional pool swimming to open water marathon swimming. And have gone on to do many of the big swims around the world.
That is so fascinating. Now, we do have a short video that's going to show us some of the different places you've been, but tell us some of the highlights that you recall that you can share with us.
Well, I'm the first female in history to achieve the Triple Crown the Grand Slam of marathon swimming. There was one guy who got in ahead of me to be the first overall, but I was the first female. That's the English Channel, Manhattan Island, the Catalina Channel, and the length of Tampa Bay.
Oh my word. That is
And
insane. Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. The archivists went through and dug through all the annals of history and found that was the case. On the 12th or 13th, excuse me, 13th to do the Triple Crown. And then of course I brought the sport to South Carolina over 20 years ago.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, tell us where you grew up and how you ended up in this area.
I grew up near Pittsburgh. I was born in Pittsburgh and grew up just in a little college town outside of Pittsburgh, Indiana, PA. And I was lucky enough when I chose the harp, or rather the harp chose me. There's some debate as to how that goes with musicians. I was lucky enough to find Paula Page, who was one of the harpists with the Pittsburgh Symphony. And she was a superb teacher, and she got me started in the right way, and from there sent me on to Cleveland, to the Institute of Music there, to study with Alice Shalafou. And as I put it, it was like going to Harp Buds. For anyone who understands special operations training and so forth, it was like going to Harp Buds. So I spent 6 years with her and got a bachelor's and a master's, and there were 2 harp openings at that point, one in Charleston, South Carolina, and one in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So that was kind of easy, given my propensity for the water.
Good choice. I would have chosen that as well. Well, we're going to come back to your harp playing in just a minute, because that's a really, I mean, one of the most fascinating instruments in the orchestra is the harp. But let's get back to your swimming just a little bit. There are several places that you mentioned and others that you've been to. We have some photographs to show as well. Tell us a little bit about swimming the Strait of Gibraltar. What was that like?
Strait of Gibraltar, actually, it's one of the easier swims. It's only 11 miles or so. We start in Tarifa, Spain, and swim over to Morocco. It's a very rough swim because the water is coming through the strait in such a forceful manner from the Atlantic Ocean rushing into the Mediterranean. So swimmers have to make tracks and not dawdle around too much, hurry up and get across. So it was an extremely rough swim, and that's the only swim where I have needed 2 escort boats, one to run out about 50 meters ahead of me, and they're on the radio talking to all of the shipping traffic so that I can dodge the container ships and the oil tankers and the military vessels. And then I had a little smaller craft, a little Zodiac, that was closer to me to actually check on me and supply the feeds every 30 minutes. And it was funny because I took my daughter. She was 15 at the time, and she was my crew, and the Spaniards just looked at us like, this American can't swim, and she brought a kid to be her crew. And what was funny is every single feed, my daughter would take that feed bottle and toss it, and it would land right between my shoulders, 18 inches out in front of me. And then I put 2 and 2 together. The kid's a softball pitcher. Of course she could throw the feed bottle and have it land perfectly every time. So she was nails. That was a tough swim. I remember trying to finish, and they had to turn me directly into a cliff face because there was no beach available. And also, being in Morocco, in a Muslim country, they don't want women coming up on the beach in a conventional swimsuit with no passport. So we have to take those kind of considerations into account. So I'm headlong into this incoming current, trying to get into this cliff face and wondering why they're doing this to me. And then reached out after struggling for about 20-25 minutes, touched the cliff and immediately stopped and was pulled away that fast, 10-15 feet instantly. And then it dawned on me, they couldn't bring me in the other way because I would have been crushed onto the cliff face with the water moving as violently as it does. So there's a lot to go into these swims, and it takes a very, very good pilot who knows the waters and knows what obstacles a swimmer will face, a good crew, and then of course the swimmer winds up just swimming for his or her life all the time.
That's really amazing, and that's why I asked about that particular swim, because I've heard and read about the really rough waters, and you would think they would be rough because of the where the 2 seas come together like that. And now, when you got to the other side in Morocco, I bet you saw lots of monkeys, right? I hear that.
Actually, the monkeys are at Gibraltar to go up
Oh,
onto the rock.
okay.
Those are where the monkeys are, and they warn you, like, take off watches, take off jewelry, because the monkeys will go for them.
Right. That's what I've
They're
heard
not
as well.
necessarily friendly monkeys.
Right. Okay. And another one that was really dangerous was Cook Strait. Tell us about that.
The Cook Strait is the only did not finish that I have ever had in my career, and I've been at this sport over 20 years. That winter, I had a bad cold, and I inadvertently dropped a little bit of weight and went to New Zealand. And the day that I was to swim, it was a passable day. The water temperature was probably 62 or so, which is as good as you're going to get because you've got the winds blowing up from Antarctica. And the air temperature was cool that day. It was in the upper 50s. So there was constant heat loss. And I swam, and I never did warm up. And I remember hour after hour just being so cold. And when I finally was able to see the dolphins, they came to keep me company for a little while. I couldn't enjoy the dolphins because I was so cold. And then after a period of time, I was swimming into darkness, and that's about the last thing I remember. They wound up pulling me out of the water at around 9 hours and 40 minutes because I was so incoherent. I couldn't answer a basic question, and I was starting to dip under the water and then resurface. And they knew if this swim went on much longer, I was going to go under the water and I wouldn't come up. And so I don't remember a lot about that. The next thing I remember is being on the big boat and asking for another blanket. And they said, "We don't have any. You've already got 7 blankets on." So I was severely hypothermic, and they obviously didn't want to risk losing me. And I'm kind of glad they made that decision to go and pull me.
Oh my gosh! Now, when
I was ready to go the next day.
Oh, I bet you were. Oh my gosh, that must have been really scary though for you and for your family.
It wasn't. We just kind of, didn't have quite the result we wanted. Apparently, I fought them the whole time about coming out of the water.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Now, when you do these swims, are you usually doing them with, I mean, obviously you have your crew with you, but are you sometimes in a competition with other people? Or are you usually doing these on your own? How does that work?
Both. Some of these swims are competitions and some are solo swims. And I've done probably half competition, half solo. The English Channel, for example, is always a solo swim. And Manhattan Island, for example, is usually done in a race format. So I'm accustomed to going either way, and whatever the circumstances. And, I'll swim this weekend, and it's just a swim that I put together rather quickly out in San Diego around Coronado Island. Right.
And we'll talk more about that at the end when we talk more about your family as well. Let's get back to music, though. So you arrived here in Charleston and were performing with the symphony. Tell us what it's like to be a symphony performer, and specifically what it's like to be a harpist. And in a little bit, we'll also want to ask you a little bit about the harp because it's such an interesting instrument.
Well, it can be, a lonely existence back there, being a section of one most of the time. But I've always tried to have swimming and music kind of play off each other. And the one big advantage that I always had as an athlete that came directly from music is a sense of tempo. Everyone has always commented on how I am spot on. In the first hour and in the 10th or 12th or 14th hour in a swim, I'm exactly at the same tempo. I stop, grab a feed, I stop for maybe 15, 20 seconds, drop the bottle, they reel it in, and I keep swimming and resume that tempo. And that comes straight from music, as well as that ability to be alone for a long time and to be in your own head. Obviously, in a practice room, all those years, we can't use earbuds. We're there to listen to ourselves very objectively. And so there's no music, no earbuds, and that's the same in music, or in athletics, in marathon swimming. We are not allowed to do that. We must learn to live in our own heads. So there was a little bit of carryover between the two. But as far as music, it's something that moved me very much from infancy. As a matter of fact, that's how my mother found out that John Kennedy had been assassinated. She went to turn the radio on to settle me down because I was being pretty obnoxious. I was a newborn. And that's how she got that news.
Oh, wow.
And so it's been something that has been a part of my life. I didn't grow up in a music-centric household. quite honestly, I spent more time at Three Rivers Stadium than I did at Heinz Hall.
Oh, really? Okay.
We certainly went to see the Nutcracker, went to see the symphony from time to time. But it's something, with music, whether or not that's the profession for you. And it was for me, and it's been a very, very good career. I've worked very, very hard. I think now I'm starting to stand down a gear or two, and actually it feels good because I've run at Mach 1 for 25 years or so.
Sure.
But playing in an orchestra and just having the ability to set my own schedule, yet maintain a very rigid schedule, and being very, very self-reliant. That's the one thing with musicians. We are extremely self-reliant. We get the job done and then show up and go in and perform.
Right, and that's what we really appreciate about you and so many of your colleagues at the Pops. It is something where we really have to depend and rely on you all to be ready to go. Sometimes, right. We have one rehearsal. Maybe we rehearse the day of the show, and other times we have two. But it is very difficult, and like I say, we really expect a lot of players who are performing with us. So you must have had some memorable moments. I know you sent a photograph with one of my own personal heroes, Yo-Yo Ma. We actually went to school together, and what an amazing person. Not only a brilliant musician, but somebody who's really brought to the forefront music from so many different lands, in not just classical music.
Right. He's a very, very nice human being as well. And
Yeah.
I saw him and got a chance to meet him at the opening of the Gilliard Auditorium, of the Gilliard Center, when it reopened after the renovations. So it's been things like that. I played at the top of the Ravenel Bridge when the bridge was opening. And that was one fun party that night. The symphony was the dance band. And so we played 45-minute sets, and then we would take 15, 20-minute breaks. And we were allowed to just go on out and mingle and go to the food stations. And so it was such a memorable moment, playing the cadenza to the Waltz of the Flowers at the top of the Ravenel Bridge.
Oh, my word. Now, was the bridge shaking? Or
No, it was great. In fact, I wondered how stable it would be, but it was rock solid. It was a lot of fun, and things were extremely well done. I played a dinner. I've gotten to play for everybody. That's what has been so fantastic about this whole career that I've had for so many years in Charleston. If somebody was coming into town, it was call Kathleen. Just call Kathleen. So they called Kathleen. And I played a dinner for Princess Anne one night, the British royal family, down on the Battery. And it was funny because, of course, they had to tell her that I swam the English Channel. And, of course, she came over to me and looked at me and said, well, why on earth would you want to do that? And I just looked and I said, Kathleen, bite your tongue. And I said, ma'am, because it was a good challenge. And we just left it at that. But it was such a fun evening because I knew the tunes that I was playing so well. I could observe all the goings on. And quite honestly, I had a lot more fun with her security detail at the end of the evening. Because I came down, they were all ex-British military guys, and all they wanted to talk about was swimming the ditch, as they put it.
Oh, they call it the ditch. Oh, that's
They call it the ditch. So it's been those kind of things, playing with the Moody Blues on a Friday night and playing La Boheme Saturday night.
Yeah.
So it's been this juxtaposition and these lives, and then heading back into the pool Monday morning to train for another international caliber swim.
Oh, that's so great. Well, we're just very proud to have you in our organization, to have a harpist of your caliber performing with us. It's just really fabulous. And, it's funny, in popular music, sometimes the harp plays almost more, or it's even more physical than some of the classical repertory. Now, of course, that's not always the case, but frequently composers will really take advantage of the harp and all of its wonderful qualities.
It's fun. I really enjoy playing with North Charleston Pops because it's nice to play performances again and again of just different literature. You're not going to get that in a conventional classical symphony orchestra, and I know that classical repertoire pretty well. And so this is a really nice change of pace. And Tacy books such great guest artists. Of course, you do too, because you're working in tandem. So it's been such a pleasure to play. And I'll tell you, tell you more. It feels good to be healthy again, because my body, after these 25 years of swimming and 5,000 weddings, blew up in 2017. I mean, my shoulders literally fell apart. And
Oh my God.
yeah, that was tough. I mean, I realized I was having trouble playing. I was just having trouble functioning, and I wasn't happy to be swimming, and I wasn't happy to be playing, and I didn't want to do much of anything, and I thought maybe I was just excessively run down after so many years. Well, it turns out I didn't have 2 torn rotator cuffs. I had 2 completely blown out rotator cuffs.
Oh my gosh.
So that was the year of shoulder surgeries on both, and I had them done 10 weeks apart, which is unbelievably fast, but
Yeah.
that's kind of the way I operate. So I have 10 anchors in my shoulders holding them together,
Oh dear.
and managed to come back and play at a good level on an instrument, and managed to come back and swim big events again. I rehabbed myself.
That's really exciting. Oh my gosh, what a story. Well, let's now talk a little bit about the harp and you know, how it works. It's just such a magical sounding instrument when we hear the wonderful things like the cadenza from the Waltz of the Flowers and things like that. I mean, they're just it's just the beautiful sound of glissandi, and you know, but how does the harp work? And you know, tell us a little bit about like the strings and the pedals and just the mechanics of it.
I sure will. It's a hard instrument, because we are the only instrument in the orchestra that has hands going, feet going, have to pay attention to the music, and I have to keep in contact with you. So you've noticed me over the years as kind of lining up and getting the harp at the perfect angle and getting the music stand perfectly positioned, so that I can, if I'm looking at music, I can still see you out of the corner of my eye. I can still see movement, and then I have to lift my eyes and catch something that you're doing. It's just a short look down to see the notes, but then I have to mess it all up and actually turn and physically look at the strings sometimes. But I'll take you over here. I've got a couple of harps. I own 4 harps.
Oh wow!
I have my 2 big concert grands that I can use for orchestra work. I have this little bronzed harp here, which is the harp that I learned to play on. This harp is probably 85 years old now, and it's as solid as a tank. It's really just a fantastic little instrument. And then I have out in another room, I have a little troubadour, which is a great instrument for a child to begin with, or students who do not own a pedal harp and who want to play. So there's a purpose for every harp that I own, and I don't think that I could part with any of them. I could never sell a harp. I'd become too attached to them. But anyhow, I'll take a wander over here. I think you can see over here. This is one of the big harps. Can you hear me? Can you still hear me all right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
The strings, I have 48 strings. They're made of 3 materials. These are wire strings. These are gut strings, and the top is nylon. And that's done for sound purposes. We want that big, round, deep sound that the bass gives. We want the robust, beautiful sound that a gut string produces, and then the brightness of the nylon strings up in the top. So that's why the 3 different materials. They are color-coded, with my C's being red and my F's being black. So that is the standard color coding on harps, and we do that purely for identification. So if the strings were all the same color, I wouldn't have any idea where I was. I don't have perfect pitch, so it would be awfully hard to find my way around, especially in a hurry. So that's the standard color coding. This harp, this instrument, was made in Chicago. It's American made, and the Americans make some of the best harps in the world at Lion and Healy.
Right.
And this is a concert grand. It's a big instrument. Anything bigger would be impractical, but it is big enough that I have to take care when transporting it. I have a big old van. Everybody always asks. It's a van, never a pickup, always a van, so it's enclosed. And this instrument has, like all harps, it has 7 pedals, because when playing a harp, the harp is not strung chromatically. So in other words, the strings are roughly the equivalent of the white keys on a piano. And if I have to make sharps or flats, that's all done with my feet. So sometimes my feet are dancing around faster than my hands. And then other times they're pretty subdued, and it's just all fingers. Oh, and in addition, we only use 8 fingers. We do not use little fingers on the harp at all, these little 5th fingers. They're too short and they're too weak. So everything is done with these 8. which complicates things when I'm handed a piano composition that has a 5-fingered pattern.
Right, right.
Sometimes it's playable, sometimes it's not. We steal piano and guitar music a lot, and some of it works really well, some of it doesn't. But what really is fascinating about this instrument of pedals, there are 1,500 to 2,000 moving parts in this instrument. And a lot of those are up here in this metal action plate. And with the 7 pedals that I have, one for each note of the scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, I have 3 notches, one for a flat, one for a natural, and one for a sharp. For example, I'm out here using the A pedal. If I have the A in the topmost notch, it is A flat. All the A's on the harp are A flat. If I move that pedal to the middle notch, you can't see it on this side, but a disc will engage and grab that string and raises the pitch to A natural. If I want to play an A sharp, I move the pedal again to the bottom notch. Another disc engages and makes the string A sharp. So I'm playing the same string and getting 3 different pitches, whatever pitch I need. And that pedal will affect all the A's on the harp, and the C pedal will affect all the C's. So if you want to kill a harpist, put a lot of chromaticism in the music.
Yeah, right.
Because we can't, oftentimes we can't move the pedals fast enough. But yet we can do some cool things that other instruments can't. Which is just a nice little whole tone scale. Just moving a couple of pedals and you get all these magical sorts of sounds.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, thank you for helping us. My mother actually was a harpist.
Oh,
so I always
really?
had a lot of affection for the harp. Yeah, we had a Lion and Healy in our living room, and she played with the local orchestras, and she studied with Lucille Lawrence.
Really? Oh, my goodness.
In Boston, yeah, way back in the day. And so I kind of grew up with listening to the harp, and I've always loved the sound of the harp. So,
well, Nick, you've been holding out on me. I'd love to know that. That's terrific. And Lucille Lawrence was such a great musician, great harpist.
She was, and I got a chance to, socialize with her a lot, go to lessons and all that, and yeah, so that's kind of a fun thing as well. And you mentioned too the troubadour harp, which is that originally an Irish or a Celtic harp? And you can't change the notes as easily because it doesn't have pedals.
That's correct. It does not have pedals. What my Truby has is a series of levers up on the neck. And so you can raise and lower the lever. Now, there's one lever per string, so it's not like on a pedal harp where all of the A's are affected by the A pedal. You have to manually go up and lift the lever for every A on the harp. So we can change pitches that way, but it's more limited in what it can play, and it really is more folk tunes, that sort of thing. You can't play super complex repertoire, but it's a great avenue for a child who wants to play. They can't sit at a harp like this, even the small little Wurlitzer, it would just knock them over. So Truby is a great way to start, and that's been a wonderful little instrument that I happened to buy from a student when she outgrew it.
That's great. That's great. Now you have lots of parallel lives, and one of them is public service. And a lot of people are not aware that you have done a lot in our area in public service. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the highlights?
Well, I served 3 terms as a City of Charleston council member, and I represented the city portion of the majority of James Island. And it's been the most fantastic service of my life. Politics these days is not pretty. I'm no longer on council. I've actually been elected to Commissioner of Public Works. So I am an elected commissioner with water system, which is only fitting, I think. But with city council, it was fantastic to learn about so many aspects of municipal law and how municipalities run. And I was very, very fortunate to work under one of the best mayors that the United States has ever had in Joe Riley. And regardless of party affiliation, I will just stay neutral and say it was a pleasure working with him because of the kind of leadership that he showed. And it was fantastic to sit in council and watch himself get out of a jam, and learn how to do it very diplomatically and how to resolve problems. I picked up a lot of legal aspects. I learned a lot about traffic and transportation. I chaired public safety for many years. So after the horrific sofa superstore fire that we had in Charleston, the Public Safety Committee was retooled, and Mayor Riley came and asked if I would chair that. So I had a very strong hand in guiding the rebuilding of our fire department after that tragedy. And so it was just a fantastic 12 years. I would have done it again, but it ran its course. And, as I said, I've now switched over to water system, and I like that very much. And I was able to hit the ground running basically 100% because I understood how these things functioned. I have just enjoyed public service. I felt like I was in it for the right reasons. There was no upside. As a matter of fact, I lost work because of it. There were organizations who routinely would hire me for this or that in the evenings for a fundraiser or something, and then opted to stay away because they asked for city funding in some capacity and wanted to avoid that link. So in some regards, I lost work because of it, but it made me a much smarter, much more well-rounded person. And that's probably my only mild criticism of being too contained in the musical world, is sometimes it gets too narrow. And like practice, rehearsal, practice, performance, students, practice, and the same old. But this gave me an opportunity to break out and do something really productive and engage myself at a very high intellectual level.
Right, and that's really exciting, and I think that's one of the things that really lends a wonderful quality to musicians, is when they have that variety of things in their lives, when they can draw on experiences from so many different areas. I have always found that to be a really, really positive thing.
Right. It's strengthening. It's like laying rebar, and the more rebar you put into the foundation, the stronger the outcome. So that's how I've always looked at life, is trying to lay down as much rebar as possible and building a very, very firm foundation.
That's wonderful. And you mentioned earlier about your two children. We'd love to talk about them, and we have some photographs of you with both of them. And evidently you're leaving this week to visit in San Diego, and you're going to be doing some swimming as well when you're out there?
Yes. My daughter, Christine, is a Naval Academy graduate, and she's a helicopter pilot, and she's stationed in San Diego, and she's on a sea tour right now, so she's in and out of deployments, and she's actually in Nevada right now, but she will be back the end of the week. So we'll be able to go out to the squadron, watch her touch down, and go out and meet her. And my son is a Citadel graduate, and he is Navy as well, and he's doing stuff, I'll just say, that makes mothers very nervous. I'll leave it at that. And he is stationed in San Diego as well. And so my husband and I, we get out there a couple of times a year, so we're headed out this week. And because it's been such a tough year on the world stage for a lot of big swims, many swims were canceled, including the event that I was to swim in August. I said to myself, you know what? Coronado is a nice swim. Not a lot of people have done that. And so I have the knowledge base and I have the contacts. So I set up a swim. I found someone who was willing to rent us a boat. So I have my husband, my two kids, my son-in-law, and one good dog on the boat.
Oh, that'll be a lot of fun.
And
I have really, really great time.
It's going to be fun. We have a kayak as well. So my son, my daughter, my son-in-law, whomever wants to, they can alternate shifts in the kayak, because oftentimes it's nice to have a kayak closer to my level to communicate, and that way the boat doesn't have to be right on me all the time.
Right. Wow. Well, that will be a really, really fun time for you and your family. And tell us a little bit about one other aspect of your life. You have pets. And I noticed a picture you sent, which we're going to show, of you have more than 2 rabbits though, right?
I have 3 rabbits.
You have 3. Okay.
I have 3 house rabbits.
Okay.
And I have loved rabbits since I, again, was an infant. When I was born, I pretty much laid out how my life was going to be, between music, the water, and animals, specifically rabbits. So I have had rabbits most of my adult life. They live in the house. I treat them just like you would a cat or a dog. They're litter trained, they're smart, they're very, very clean. And I have always just loved their little personalities and their little quirkiness, because they're not dogs and they're not cats. They're rabbits.
Right.
And it's just one of those little pleasures in life. And they certainly know me. They understand words. They kind of understand commands, and they choose whether or not to follow them. That's one aspect of their personality. It's a little more cat-like. But I rescue. So I have never gone to a breed or anything like that. There are more rabbits in need of homes, just like cats and dogs.
Yeah. Now, where do you rescue rabbits from in this area?
Oh, they find me.
Okay.
I'll have a call, or one of my rabbit friends in Charleston will say there was a rabbit picked up. It was a very young rabbit. The rabbit, for example, one of mine was in terrible shape. She was brought in. She was a couple years old and had been very badly mistreated and was just covered in mites and things like that. And we rehabbed her back to health, and she's now a queen. And she lives in the house, and she tells me what to do.
Well, rabbits have such unusual personalities, and you're right, they're not dogs, they're not cats, they're very unique, and they are very intelligent. We've had several different breeds of rabbits as well, and I've always really enjoyed them. They're just fun.
Well, it's, if you would have told me when I was 5 or 6 years old, if you would have said, when you grow up, you're going to be living where it's warm, very close to the beach, with rabbits living under your bed, there couldn't have been anything any better. So I try and remind myself, when we all have our up days and our down days, I tell myself I've got, great health, knock on wood, and I have bunny rabbits, and I live 12 minutes from the beach.
There you go. What's not to like?
That's right.
It's hard to beat. It's hard to beat. Well, we so appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. We again are just so appreciative that you are part of our organization. And again, you add so many different levels through your life, through the music that you perform with us. And it's really wonderful to get to know you better.
Well, thanks, Nick. You and Tacy do a fantastic job. And I'm just so anxious to get back on a stage and get back to work.
We are as well. Well, thank you for joining us. And I would like to just thank our sponsors really quickly, and then we will finish up the show. I want to thank the South Carolina Arts Commission, the Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly Foundation, the Boeing Company, and our season sponsor for Happy Hour, Maestro Wines. We look forward to joining you again next Thursday at 5.